please do so at Money Talk Mel. Actually, that's my Twitter handle. Come on, Melanie. Follow me on Twitter at Money Talk Mel. My Facebook page is Money Talk with Melanie, and I'm trying to separate the two of us, the business diva and Melanie Teresa, the person, because they're getting in conflict, and that's just not a good look, and I can't have it anymore. Now, I wanted to talk a little bit of news before I move on to the guest. And actually, I think what I'm going to do is just skip the break because there's a couple of really important things happening financially. January 1st, as of today, actually, higher minimum wage took place in 18 states and towns and cities with the new year. That is helpful to 4.5 million workers, or at least temporarily. I submit that it will only be helpful temporarily because prices are going to go up. In fact, hi, everybody who's piling into the chat. How are you? Glenn, David, Cleophas, hi. Tony, Tina, Damien, hello. But my suspicion is that it's only going to be helpful to them temporarily. And incidentally, I posted something about this a couple of days ago. Kenneth Jones, hi. Looking forward to being on your show this evening. By the way, please post a link or an ad or a promo or something to what we're going to be talking about later, if you would. But I think it's going to hurt them. And somebody posted an article and said, are you responsible for this? A lot more people are eating at home. The statistics show. It's like, yeah, well, the price of food, if you raise the minimum wage and say that people have to pay, business owners have to pay people more, that doesn't get passed on to the business owner. It gets passed on to the customer, and it hurts the economy. These things need to be grown organically. If there's increased jobs and increased competition, then you have a situation where people will get paid more if you have the skills. So, okay, liberals, that's what you want. That's what you're going to get. I hope that you're happy. I just think it's not an awesome thing. And Bitcoin, as you know, we've been talking about Bitcoin for a minute. I have another expert coming on Friday, by the way. Stan Larimer will be here Friday to talk to us about Bitcoin. It took that huge dip and scared the heck out of everybody last week. And I believe it's back up again, and it has stabilized. It's starting to be a very polarizing topic. You have some people who are, like cryptocurrency is the best thing since sliced bread. And you have other people that's like, it's going to be the death knell of the entire economy. So we still have to wait and see. Hi, Doug. Welcome. Levon, Michael. Hi. Terry. Hello. So we'll see. But I'm going to have Stan Larimer here on Friday to talk to us about that. And then tomorrow, I'm going to have, who's going to be my guest tomorrow is, come on, Mel. Pierre and Christine Joseph, who are the president and vice president of Business Recharge by the Book. And guess what book that is? And we're going to talk to the one and only Bible, we're going to talk to them about how to take your business to a whole new level. So I'm excited to have them on. They were rescheduled from last year. And I think that's going to be a great talk. They're actually another couple that I ran into and met out at the Value Voter Summit in DC a few weeks ago. So I'm happy that they're going to be on the show. Now, without further ado, Cassandra Laymon, when she said I do to her husband, Rick, they were not only merging their families, but also their financial practices. It's a marriage and an acquisition. It's very true. She set out on a mission to better understand God's word about investing so that she could educate her clients. And in her messages, she shares what she learned that transformed not only her business, but her life. And her book is a bestseller. And again, it's called I Found Jesus in the Stock Market, How Biblically Responsible Investing Can Change Your Heart Too. Very excited to have her here. And without further ado, how are you, Cassandra? And thank you for your patience.
Yeah, for having me. Just want to make sure you hear me okay.
I can hear you fine. And hopefully, and if they can't hear you, they will tell me, I'm sure, which I appreciate. If they can, like, can you hear my guest okay? They will usually tell me. but you sound good. Thank you for being on the show, and thank you for your patience.
I'm glad to be here. Glad to talk to you today.
So tell us about the whole theory behind biblically responsible investing. Like, what does the Bible have to do with business? You'll hear people say that all the time. Like, the Bible has nothing to do with politics. The Bible has nothing to do with business. The Bible has nothing to do, my belief is the Bible has to do with everything.
Right. Well, just for those people who've never heard of biblically responsible investing before, you might be familiar with the concept of, let's say, socially responsible investing, when there are certain things that we don't invest in. So in this case, for biblically responsible investing, we would not invest in things that oppose our faith values. So those would be things like abortion philanthropy, meaning companies that contribute to Planned Parenthood, pornography, companies that prey on the addictions of others. So when we're talking about smoking or alcohol or gambling, we really want to love our neighbor, right? The Bible says love our neighbor. But if we're making money based on someone else's addiction, right? So if I'm investing in a tobacco company, the only way I'm going to make money is if more people start smoking or if they smoke more. That's not loving my neighbor. That is a really big part of biblically responsible investing. So we're not going to invest in those companies, but instead we want to look at companies that really seek to be a blessing. So they are looking at, we're looking at companies that are great to their employees. They make good products. They have great customer service. Great community service. They're very charitable minded. So our premise is that you should align your values with your investments and really be investing in the things that are in alignment with your faith.
Now, what to the theory that if you're investing, this is business? I hear Christians say this Christians say this all the time. This is business, or this is politics. Somebody will ask me for advice about something, and I'll say, well, if you do that, you're lying. Like, that's like I wouldn't do that because that would be dishonest. And they'll be like, but that person's, really powerful. That person's just like more powerful than God. Like, what?
Right. Well, there is a passage in Deuteronomy that says, okay, so some people, exactly what you're saying, some people will say, well, I'm just going to make a lot of money. I'm going to make as much money as I can, and then I'll give it all away. I'll tithe, or I'll, donate everything. And there's a passage in Deuteronomy that says, don't bring the earnings of a prostitute into the house of the Lord your God. So I think that God really cares about how we make our money, not just the money part of it, right? We want to tithe, we want to be generous, but if we're making our money in a way that God would not agree with that, so, I think pornography or prostitution certainly, would fall into that category. In that passage, it says, I don't want your money if that's how you're making your money. So I feel like that's pretty clear from a biblical standpoint that we need to be thinking about not just making money, but where it comes from, where it starts, what's generating that profit. Exactly.
Now, this actually was a source of debate on my Facebook page. I'd love to ask your opinion on this. And I was out, so I couldn't address it. I just kind of posted it and didn't think it would be up for debate, but you know how social media is. You know how it is, how it goes. So I'd love to hear your opinion on this post. There was a meme that said, it's not a blessing if you had to sin to get it.
Oh.
What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I would have to agree with that. I mean, one of the things, and in the book, I talk about my personal story. So I grew up in the church, and then I was away from the church for 20 years. And when I met my husband and I started learning about biblical investing, that's really what brought me back to the church and recommitted my life to Christ. And I feel like because I was new in my faith at that time, sometimes it's a little easier, right? Things seem a little more black and white.
Right.
And you're very enthusiastic, right? We're very enthusiastic about our faith. If you remember, back in the beginning, maybe when you accepted Christ, that it's very exciting. You want to tell everybody about it. And so as I was learning about biblical investing and saying, okay, well, there's certain things we're not going to invest in because we don't agree with those. They're not biblical principles. That was so black and white for me. And I just said, oh, well, yes. There's no gray area. I wasn't debating it. I was just excited about, I just want to do whatever the Lord wants me to do. And so this whole idea of ownership and really condoning when you're investing, right? You're investing in a company. You're saying, I believe in what you are doing, and I want you to do more of it so that we can make money together. So, we think about abortion or contributing to Planned Parenthood, or like when you're talking about sins, right? So if I say I want this company to do more of what they're already doing, that's what I call praying with our dollars. We're saying, ooh, God, let this company expand and flourish and do more of what it's already doing so that we can share in the profits together. And when you think about it in that way, like, this is how I'm making my money, getting kids addicted to smoking or getting people addicted to alcohol, whatever it is, you need them to do more for you to make money. So I think I have to agree with your meme.
I do too. And I was shocked. Pastor Henry Essick, hello, just joined the thread. I was actually shocked that that Christians were like, where is that at in the Bible? And I had that very discussion with someone not too long ago, another Christian who was like, where is that said? And I said, well, somebody robs a bank and they get lots of money and buy a house with it. Like, you think that house is going to be blessed?
Right.
I said, God doesn't reside in mess and sin. No, you don't need any money, Pastor Essick. You good. You are working man. Pastor Essick just said he needs some money. He's a strong man of faith, Pastor Essick. Love him to death. He is a unique character, that one. Yeah, I really wanted to ask you about that because I you're just surprised at things in Christianity that are up for debate, or things that you would think would not be up for debate are, and particularly in business, people really try to separate that, and I don't quite understand that. Even well.
I think part of it too, part of the reason when we come to investing, right, there's certain things about money that we talk about all the time in church. We talk about tithing. We talk about living within our means. But we really don't talk about this piece of investing. And so the one thing, I think it's very confusing for people now because investing has gotten so complex, right? So there are certain businesses that might have 60 different product lines, and there are some great products that they produce, but they also manufacture abortifacient drugs. Or it's like mutual funds or ETFs where you might have 50 or 60 companies in a mutual fund and you don't have any idea what you're investing in. So 100 years ago when you were investing, it's like you knew the business owner, you believed in what he was doing, you said, hey, or take my money, expand, do more, share the profits with me. But now it's so complex that most people, and I will even say many financial advisors, do not know what business practices they're investing in.
Because they're not really concerned about it. And so what would you recommend for the Christian who wants to get involved in investing but does not want to, support something like you said, something that might be unchristian or that might be, damaging?
Yeah, well, so I always want to tell people, I do not sit behind a computer all day doing research, right? I'm spending time with clients or I'm teaching. So we have research. We have great folks who do that research all day long. I'm so grateful that there are people who love to do that. Mm-hmm. And so we have a way that we can screen companies or funds or portfolios. And by that, I mean, you can give me either like a copy of your statement or you can give me a list of funds or companies, and I can make a report that says, these are all the activities that this company or this fund is invested in. You can actually get a percentage of how much of your money is invested in companies that you might not agree with. So I'll give you an example. The S&P 500, right? So that's 500 companies that we're all pretty familiar with, big companies. 60% of the S&P 500 is invested in companies or business practices that you probably don't agree with. So if you're just in a, like a Vanguard S&P 500 fund, that means that 60 cents out of every dollar in that fund is going to something you don't agree with. So one of the things that we do on our website, beaconwealth.com, there's a place where you can do screen my portfolio. And you can put in either stock symbols or mutual fund symbols, or you can even just email us directly if you don't want to use that form. And that's something we just do for free for everybody, because I think that's the first step. You just want to understand what you own, and then you can start make some decisions about how you want to invest, if you think you need to make changes. But you can't make any decisions or changes until you actually know what you own.
That makes a lot of sense. I just posted that in the chat roll there for people to log on if they want to log on and check out their investments and see what's going on there. Now, one of the things that you do is you try to make investing less complex without using a lot of confusing financial jargon. How do you go about that? And I know that as somebody who teaches financial lit to teenagers, I'm kind of familiar with the challenges that can present. How do you go about it?
Well, I think first and foremost, my first career was not as a financial advisor. So my first career, I was working in healthcare. I'm also a physical therapist. I have been for many years. I worked in hospitals. I worked with nurses. I did organizational development. And I also have a master's degree in adult education. So financial terms were not really second nature to me until really I got my MBA in finance just about 10 years ago. And I just would say, hey, this does not have to be so crazy. And I find myself, when I listen oftentimes to financial advisors, I say, oh, you're just way over that. You're talking way over everyone's head. Pull it way back. Mm-hmm. And if do you know Donald Miller, who wrote, he wrote Story Brand. He's a very popular Christian author, but he now helps businesses to simplify their message. And so you'll appreciate this. We as experts often talk on a scale of 1 to 10. We talk at the level 10.
Yeah.
Or if we want to simplify things, we think we're making it simple and we bring it back to a level 8. But he says you got to talk to people at a level 1 or a level 2.
It's true.
So when I write, I try to write at about a 6th grade reading level, not because people can't read more complex things, but I just want to simplify concepts. So just like when we're talking about investing, I did a whole series about like, what is a stock? What is a bond? For people that aren't familiar with that. And I really talked about, okay, there's a bakery on the corner store, or on the corner, bakery store on the corner, and you want to invest. And how would that work if you were just looking at one company and it's somebody that you know and it's a friend, and how would that work to make it more simple?
That makes a lot of sense. And I don't know how surprised the audience would be to hear this. I think probably most conservatives wouldn't be shocked to hear that most people only absorb on that level. When I first started freelance writing, that was one of the things the editor told me. He's like, yeah, you got to dial it down a couple notches there.
Yeah,
Because
go ahead. I would say the other thing that really helped me, a few years ago, I would teach the stock market game, which is an investing game for kids, right?
Yep.
To middle schoolers. And so when you have to explain things at that level, it really helps you to really dial it back and try to simplify things.
It does, when you're used to talking to children. Now, I actually have used that game in high school. And still, and what's actually really funny is that they always want to, and listen, you should start out investing in something you know, right? But, everybody wants to buy Apple stock. Like every kid wants to I don't know if you found that too, but every kid always wants to buy like Apple stock or something. It's like, yeah, that's like $800 a share. I don't think that's going to happen.
We had a team that the kid's dad worked for Tractor Supply, and they ended up placing so well because but it was stuff that they knew.
Right.
We're not talking about Apple necessarily, but like if your family works in the business or it's a product that you really love, those are things that good places for people to start. Exactly.
Don't start with something that you don't know. That's kind of one of the first rules of stock market game. What do you like? But
right.
and that is super fun. That whole situation, teaching a stock market game, is fun. I might do that this year. We'll see what happens. The kids are just not as well behaved as they used to be, but it makes it harder to do fun stuff. But
right.
The stock market game is great. Let me ask you this: if once you find out, let's just say that you do the screening, and you find out that, I don't know, 90% of your investments are in things that are immoral, ungodly, and you want to fix that. Is there an easy way to go about doing that?
Well, it depends if you are investing on your own or you're investing with a financial advisor. And so it's interesting. Most people will say, oh, well, my financial advisor is a Christian, so I know they're not investing in these things. Well, I mean, but the truth is, right, if you've not had that conversation, your financial advisor might not even know about it. So I don't judge that at all. And I just say, have a conversation with your financial advisor, and you could be the person that introduces them to this concept. And so we always give people, copies of my book so their financial advisor can read it. There's a whole section in there for financial advisors. But just like any business, right? If you owned a shoe store and nobody ever came in and asked you for a certain kind of shoes, you probably wouldn't carry them. So a financial advisor, is not really thinking, they want to serve their clients. So the more people that can have these conversations with their financial advisors, it really helps in starting to spread the ideas of biblical investing. And the other thing I would say is, if your financial advisor does not know how to do this type of investing, or they don't know what kind of funds are available, number one, they can call us and we could help walk them through that. We do that all the time. Another place they can look is the Christian Investment Forum.
Ooh. And
that is christianinvestmentforum.com, I'm pretty sure. I'll check it as you're looking here.
Okay.
That is a bunch of companies that all do this kind of biblically responsible investing. christianinvestmentforum.org. I'm going to make sure I got that right.
Excellent.
And so we're members there also, and I think that's a good place to start. And if your financial advisor has never heard of it, it's a good place for them to go and say, hey, what's available? Where can I get started with this?
That's a very good idea. And like I was saying to you earlier, I mean, not all Christians are created equal. And that's not a shot at my Christian brothers and sisters. It's just that, you have Christianity, and then you have, people who are in different places in their walk.
Yep. Absolutely.
And so, I would think that you may run into an investor, a Christian that's a financial advisor that's like, yeah, I know, but this is business.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, and it also depends where they work, right? If you are independent advisor, you have a lot more choices in terms of the kinds of investments that you can offer. Some of the bigger firms have really eliminated a lot of the options for biblically responsible investing. So if your advisor is independent, it gives them a little bit more flexibility in the kind of investments they can offer.
That makes a lot of sense, rather than going with some of your bigger companies where the advisor really has to follow exactly whatever it is that they want. They have protocols, and the regulations and things are just incredible. They're just ridiculous.
Right.
On some levels, they're just totally ridiculous. You're just like, oh my, how are you going to do this? We're up against a break, but when we come back, I want to talk about whether or not your you find that you make less money through biblically responsible investing, or do you find that it is a blessing, or does it matter? Should you just, not invest based on the money so much, and just invest in things that are biblically responsible? Where is the balance, so to speak? I'd love to talk to you about that on the other side of the break.
Okay, great.
Okay, you're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I am your business diva, Melanie Collette. My guest today is Cassandra Laymon from Beacon Wealth, and I'm very excited to have her today. She's also the author of the book, I Found Jesus in the Stock Market, How Biblically Responsible Investing Can Change Your Heart Too. We'll be back on the other side of the break.
Having a pro-American president will reap tremendous benefits in the new year and beyond. Hello, I'm Ron Edwards. On today's page from the Edwards Notebook, for decades, the United States has been taking it upside the head as the United Nations did everything possible to undermine American interests and sovereignty. Whether it was Agenda 21, which is designed to directly vanquish our national sovereignty and personal unalienable rights, or to bash us for acknowledging Israel's right to exist and thrive as the only nation in the Middle East that even comes close to allowing freedom for all who live in what God has called the apple of his eye. But when UN Ambassador Nikki Haley announced that the U.S. will slash spending on the United Nations by $285 million, that to me is indicative of an administration that is willing to put American interest first, although I personally think and hope that further cuts to the United Nations are necessary. That should serve as a warning to nations around the world that America is no longer their ATM machine, and a source of encouragement to my fellow Americans who will benefit from now having a pro-American president working on our behalf. Happy New Year. God bless you. God bless America, and may America bless God. I'm Ron Edwards. Sponsored by the Tri-County Liberty Coalition.
My name is David Barnett, and I've been helping people buy and sell small and medium-sized businesses since 2008. So far this year, I've gone on 5 vacations. It's because I've got my own business. When you get tired of being managed by someone else and you decide that business ownership is right for you without the risk of starting your own unproven enterprise, then come over to businessbuyeradvantage.com. There are over 100 YouTube videos on buying and selling businesses that you can watch for free. That's businessbuyeradvantage.com.
Who likes paying taxes? Nobody. That's why Eva Rosenberg from taxmama.com wants you to pay less of them. Read Small Business Taxes Made Easy and learn how legally hiring your spouse and children can slash your taxes. Learn how to set up a business plan that minimizes taxes, the benefits of setting up an exit plan, how to avoid getting audited, and how to legally increase your deductible expenses with better record-keeping techniques. Don't let the IRS squeeze you out of every penny. Visit taxmama.com. Click on Ask a Tax Question to get free answers to your tax and business questions. That's taxmama.com.
Welcome to this week's Money Talk with Melanie, with your business diva, Melanie Collette. This week we talk 3 first steps to start the new year off right. Step 1, start tracking your net worth. Your net worth is the difference between your assets and debt. Paying attention to your net worth lets you know whether you should be cutting back or if you can splurge. Step 2, create a financial calendar. Set appointment reminders for things like remembering to pay your quarterly taxes or periodically pulling a credit report. Finally, step 3, check your interest rates. Checking your interest rates is a great way to determine things like which debts you should pay off first or where you should open a savings account. And that's all for this week's Money Talk Minute with your business diva, Melanie Collette. Please remember to listen to Money Talk with Melanie Monday through Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 4 p.m. Central, or 2 p.m. Pacific Time on SHR Media and High Plains Pundit Talk Radio.
Hello, I'm Tim Hart. I'm the guy BZ hires to his contract with the SHR Media Network to voice his promos. He took me to tell you that the bloviating Influence Berserk Bob Saloon radio show can be found on SHR Media Network, Spreaker,
and YouTube every Tuesday and Thursday night at 11 p.m. Eastern and 8 p.m. Pacific, featuring right thinking from a left brain and doing the job the American media maggots won't. You'll find that the speech is free, but the drinks are not. There, in the saloon, just when safety pin manufacturers are running out of metal for the diapers of the leftists, BZ is sending his personal drones of freedom into the wheelhouses and ossicles of lovers of sovereignty and liberty nationally and globally. Broadcasting behind enemy lines in occupied California, BZ swears that no rights were harmed in the making of this promo.
And we're back. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I'm your business diva, Melanie Collette. And our guest today is Cassandra Laymon, president of Beacon Wealth. And we're talking about biblically responsible investing. And I just want to mention again that she's also the author of the book, I Found Jesus in the Stock Market, How Biblically Responsible Investing Can Change Your Heart Too. So I wanted to ask you, and I alluded to this before the break, your biblically responsible investing, does that automatically mean less money? Or can you invest in such a way? Can you possibly, in this world, invest and still make money being biblically responsible? I guess is how I want to frame the question.
Right. So I'm going to answer that very directly in just a second. But before I do that, I want to go back to what you talked about before, is how we're making our money. So before I even answer that, if you could invest in two different companies, and one company, let's say, makes children's clothes, and you would get a 5% return, and the other company is a prostitution ring, but you could make 10%. Okay, so there is some decision in there about, what is it worth to me, right? So is it worth the 10% to me if I'm investing in something that it opposes my faith values? That's one thing to think about. So for me, I kind of got to a place where I said, no matter what, this is the way that I want to invest. But of course, I was investing this way for my clients also, and I really wanted to make sure I was doing the right thing for them.
Sure.
And so there's this study, the BRI Institute does a back test every year. They've done this for about 15 years, where they will take the S&P 500 and compare that to a BRI portfolio. Okay, so they pull out all the stuff we wouldn't invest in, and they compare it. And sometimes the S&P 500 is a little ahead, and sometimes the BRI portfolio is a little bit ahead, but it truly is almost neck and neck. It's almost exactly the same over time. And that's not only true for BRI portfolios, but many screened portfolios. There is research that shows that if you pull companies out because you're screening, that it does not make a statistically significant difference in your performance. And I wish I didn't care at all about performance. I'm not there yet. I really
but they pay you to
care
do
very
that.
much about how I'm investing everyone's money, but it gave me a real peace of mind to think that I could invest in a way that aligned my values with my investments and not take a big hit in terms of performance, that it was going to be in the same ballpark over time. That gave me a lot of peace.
And what does the S&P put on having God's blessing? What was the monetary value of that?
Oh, what are you talking about? The returns?
Yeah. What's the return on that? Like, is there a blessing S&P?
Well, so when we look in the book, there is and actually if you go to the BRI Institute, they always have this updated on their website, and you can see the percentages over time. So every year it's different, right? What a BRI portfolio would do and what the S&P 500 would do. But at the time, so in 2016, it showed that from 2000 to 2015, the S&P 500 returned 76%, and the BRI portfolio turned 83%. So that's not going to be true all the time. All the disclosures about past performance doesn't guarantee future results. But always, when you look at it over time, it's always within a couple percentage of points of each other. And so for me, even if it was a down year for the BRI portfolio and I was going to be behind by 2%, I would say, hey, that's okay with me because I feel really good about the kind of companies I'm investing in. And what we really want to do is kind of shut off the what we would call the economic oxygen to these companies that we're in disagreement with, and take all of that money and put it into the companies that are trying to really be a blessing. And we really believe that if everybody started to invest this way together, we could make really big changes in our country.
Oh, I agree with you. I mean, that's where it all lies. I mean, that is where the rubber meets the road, is in the pockets in this world. And so I think you make a valuable point there about that. And not for nothing, all portfolios have those issues, depending on what your thing is. You know, some years they're up, some years they're not, some years they're not. It's the nature of the business.
Exactly.
So, you know, if you're a Christian, why not use that as kind of your base point, so to speak, as to how you're going to invest? It makes a lot of sense to me. But I would think it's on some levels it's difficult, only because, you know, the world just has you believe that you have to do everything their way.
Yeah.
You know, that's the problem. And so how can we be proactive about investing biblically, about being biblically responsible when we invest? How can we, you know, strive for that?
So I think the first part, like we talked about, was to have your portfolio screened so you know what you're investing in. And then we talked about having a conversation with your financial advisor. And really, it's a matter of making some changes in your portfolio. And, you know, we're so busy and we get overwhelmed and we think, oh, I have to fill out that extra paperwork. I don't want to fill out that extra paperwork. But it's just one of those steps. And certainly your financial advisor can do that for you. Or, you know, the thing that we do at Beacon, we only do biblically responsible investing. There are lots of folks who say, if you want to do that, you can. If you don't have to. But that's just the only way that we invest. And we only work with money managers who use the same principles that we use. So there are a lot of fund companies and money managers who are already doing this. You don't have to be the person that sits down and picks out one stock and rejects another stock. I mean, you need a little bit of help with it, if I'm going to be honest, right?
Right.
So either your financial advisor can help you with that. You can find some companies like fund companies I mentioned at Christian Investment Forum. If people have questions, we would be happy to answer any questions for them about that and get them on track.
And does it cost any more, like in your niche of the financial advising industry? Are BRI investors by and large charge the same commissions and that kind of thing?
Mm-hmm. When I started doing BRI, which was only, let's say, 6 years ago, I think that's something that was going around, like I want to say a myth, kind of, that it has to cost more. And I don't think that it does have to cost more. Sometimes there are extra costs that go along with the screening, but they're not significant costs. And if your performance is in alignment with what another portfolio would look like, then I think that it's worth doing. Now, let me say this. If you are a do-it-yourselfer, if you're at a Fidelity, if you're at, one of the really low cost providers, probably you'll see a little bit of a difference in terms of what the fees look like. But I think it's worth checking it out and seeing, what that looks like, and not just making that assumption, because that does not have to be the case. And there have also been some studies, we didn't really talk about this, that when you invest in great companies over time, that there is great performance that follows that. So, I mean, we've talked about, hey, am I going to lose money if I'm screening out these companies? But the truth of the matter is, and you can understand this, I mean, you invest in great companies over time, you're going to have, a decent performance over time. And if anybody visits the Christian Investment Forum, there are research papers on both sides of that about the negative screening that I talked about and the positive screening. And I think there's a lot more research that needs to be done, but I think it's really exciting to think about that.
I do too. I do too. I like that idea. How do you balance? One last question that just popped into my head. How do you balance, particularly when you're in the business of making people money, the whole not being greedy thing, or does BRI investing automatically eliminate that? If that makes sense.
Well, so we're all certified financial planners. Okay, so besides, we're certified Kingdom advisors. So besides having a biblical perspective, I mean, we have traditional credentials also,
right,
that we're following. So I think if you follow a good risk tolerance questionnaire, you know what people can tolerate. I do probably talk people out of if they get excited about big returns, right? The last few years, we've had some exciting returns in the market, and then people say, oh, well, I think I should be more aggressive. And so I have a lot of conversations with people that I say, well, you are going to retire next year. So
yeah, might not want to be aggressive.
Yeah. So we have goals for people, and they're what we call their probability of success. And as long as they're meeting that number, we like to not even look at performance numbers. We like to say, if you have everything that you're going to need that we talked about, let's take the least risk amount, the least risk that we have to meet those numbers, and just really focus on what they need and try to balance some of that out, because it can get exciting when the markets are up.
Sure, absolutely, and I absolutely love that answer. What I hear you saying is you basically use the same sound financial advising criteria that you would use if you weren't using BRI.
Yep, absolutely,
and that makes a lot of sense. So how can any of my listeners get in touch with Beacon Wealth if they'd like to get in touch with your company? I posted the website in the stream there. It's beaconwealth.com.
Correct. Yep. And we also have a podcast called The True Wealth Spotlight. So if anybody wants to check that out. And for your financial advisors, we have another website, LightPoint Portfolios, where advisors can go and learn a little bit more about biblically responsible investing.
Is that lightpointportfolios.com?
Yep.
Excellent. And if they want to get in touch with you to be a guest on the show or anything like that, how would they do that?
They can just email me, Cassandra at beaconwealth.com.
Excellent. Cassandra, I cannot thank you enough. You've been infinitely patient and just a total sweetheart. And I cannot thank you enough for being a guest on my show and putting up with me today.
It was a lot of fun. Thank you so much. I really enjoyed it.
I really enjoyed it. Please do tell your husband I said hello, and it was a pleasure. Absolute pleasure meeting him.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks so much, Cassandra. Have a great night.
Bye-bye.
Bye. You're listening to Money Talk with Melanie. I am your business diva, Melanie Collette. Be sure to pick up Cassandra Laymon's book. And let me give you the title one more time, which is I Found Jesus in the Stock Market, How Biblically Responsible Investing Can Change Your Heart Too. Some really just great sound advice on biblically responsible investing. I'm so glad I was able to finally get her on the show. Remember, all of this is very important because it is your money. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great night.